South Africa is a nation of possibilities. Resilient by nature, pragmatic by experience, and driven by an enduring belief in progress. In a world defined by volatility and uncertainty, our country is not standing still. South Africa is adapting, reforming, and positioning itself for the next phase of growth. After years of slow growth and constrained momentum, something new is beginning to take shape. Across government and the private sector, a new reform and investment push is emerging, focused on rebuilding the backbone of our economy. We believe that through action, investment, and bold leadership, momentum can truly be unleashed.
Economic growth may be modest at just over 1%, but the foundations are strengthening. Investor confidence is recovering. Governance reforms are beginning to take root, and the early signs of stabilization are becoming visible. But momentum alone is not enough. We still face deep challenges: unemployment, inequality, and underinvestment. These challenges remind us that bold reform is not optional, it is essential. When public and private sectors work together, when capital flows into the right projects, when skills, entrepreneurship, and innovation are unlocked, real growth becomes possible. South Africa's economic story can be reshaped by the choices we make now, in policy, investment, and in collaboration. At PwC, we operate at the intersection of policy, business, and technology, helping leaders translate the outcomes of the national budget into opportunity, clarity, and strategic investment. We will write the next chapter with you.
The momentum is here. The opportunity is real. Now is time to build, to innovate, and to drive reform for growth. Let's get to work together.
Bruce Whitfield, and on behalf of PwC, a warm welcome to a budget. What a difference a year makes. An astonishing difference a year makes. This time last year, we were here talking about what hadn't happened. And that was brilliant fun. We've actually had to pay attention this year and do some work, so we will share that with you today. We've got a fantastic panel to bring Budget 2026 to life for you this morning, and all of the analysis. Your participation, of course, is essential. You've got these little cards on your chairs, and if you're in the regions and watching us on the live stream, thank you for doing that. You've also got these cards. Scan the QR code, send through the questions. The earlier you get through your question, the shorter your question, and the better your typing, the more likely I am to be able to compute what you're saying and be able to put it to the panel. And if you have a question for a specific panelist, please identify that. That'd be very useful. Also, you don't leave with nothing today. You'll get CPD points. There are 90 CPD points available to 90 minutes worth of CPD points available to you. There will be a QR code at the end that you'll be able to scan. Just don't send that any questions to that QR code because you won't get a response. In the regions or in your homes and offices, I don't know where your bathrooms are. You should know, but here the bathrooms are out to the right-hand side. But before we have the panel, I need to ask Shirley Machaba to come up and greet you. It is Shirley's last budget for PwC, and I'm not a big believer in conspiracies or coincidences, but I saw Edward Kieswetter yesterday, and he confirmed that he would not be renewing his contract for SARS Commissioner. Shirley, will you confirm or deny? I wonder. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shirley Machaba.
Thank you so much, Bruce, my dear friend. Morning, everyone, and welcome to the PwC Post-National Budget Panel discussion for 2026. A special welcome to our esteemed panelists. Let me also take this opportunity to acknowledge my incoming CEO. I'm sure most of you have seen the announcement first week of December last year that we are going to have the new CEO 1 July 2026 as I retire. Do I look like I'm retiring? I'm retiring from PwC, not in the profession. That must be very clear. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Whether you are joining us in person at one of our PwC-hosted offices or connecting virtually. This year's theme, Momentum Unleashed, Driving Reform for Growth, reflects the opportunity created by this week's budget to advance the reforms that can strengthen South Africa's growth outlook, competitiveness, and fiscal resilience in the year ahead. In the minister's speech, several areas were highlighted, including how geopolitical shifts and trade tensions may shape policy planning, as well as progress required in energy, logistics, and broader structural reforms to support recovery that we're talking about. Looking ahead, we anticipate a modest but steady economic trajectory with real GDP growth projected at 1.2% in 2026, with a gradual improvement expected to 1.3% in 2027 and 1.5% in 2028. Treasury continues to maintain a strong focus on stabilizing public finances, reinforced by last year's S&P upgrade, the very first in almost 20 years. Can you believe it? Well done to the team involved. And I must say, I know that BLSA, Business Leaders South Africa, was very involved. And the budget continues to chart a route that will ultimately reduce the debt ratio. Now that the budget has been tabled, today's discussions gives us the opportunity to discuss alignment to these expectations, deeper interrogations, and public and private sector collaboration. Please underline the word collaboration. This narrative corroborates insights from PwC's 29th Global CEO Survey. Africa Perspective released earlier this month, to be specific on the 5th of February this year. CEOs in Africa continue to demonstrate notable resilience and renewed confidence. 81% of all these CEOs expect economic conditions to improve in their markets, and 47% anticipate revenue growth over the next 12 months. Yet the survey also highlights a clear challenge. 55% of Africa's CEOs see innovation as critical to their strategy. Only 13% are willing to take high-risk innovation bets. And only 8% are willing to increase large investment despite identifying opportunities. This underscores the need to shift from reactive resilience to proactive reinvention, especially in an environment where it's shaped by AI, climate pressure, and geopolitical uncertainty. It is with policy direction, fiscal realities, CEO sentiment, and global disruption that today's conversation becomes critical. The panel will unpack the key elements of the budget, its implications for political, social, and economic landscape, and the reforms needed to unlock meaningful and sustained growth. Today's discussion is designed really to help leaders across sectors interpret the budget with confidence and navigate the opportunities and challenges ahead. Thank you once again for joining us. Enjoy the session. And now I will hand over to our very capable MC, Bruce, who will guide us throughout the session. Thank you for listening.
You noticed, but she didn't deny it. You know, the problem with South Africa today is you can't innocently walk around with a Woolies bag. You know, people judge you immediately. They become collector's items, so I don't dare put it down anywhere, just in case somebody else takes it for nefarious purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Budget Breakfast, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Osman, who is part of the PwC tax team. Of course, he's a senior partner. Go up there, Osman, you're number one. And then to Faith Khanyile, who cut her teeth in business at Standard Bank as an executive for many years. Today is on the boards of, amongst others, JSE Limited, Bidvest, Premier Foods, and Discovery. Thank you, Faith. And then to Lullu Krugel, who is the chief economist at PwC South Africa. Welcome, Lulu. And then to Justice Malala, who is a deep thinker on the interplay between politics and the economy. And Justice, if you will have the hot seat next to me. Thank you. Don't touch me on my Woolies bag. Has that ever happened to you? Anyway, your questions really, really important in terms of how today plays out. We will have a great time on stage regardless, but it would be good to have your input on the budget. Justice, I'll go to you first, because you're nice socks, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
We didn't communicate beforehand. We just both colorblind. Out of 10, the budget. Give it a score, and why?
I want to give it an 8, actually, but I...
Sorry, what's happened to you? Where's the Justice Malala we never love?
The thing about it is, I want to give it an 8 and say, you know, you can be contrarian, but at the end of the day, you have a budget that's delivered this week that reflects, quite frankly, what I think is the power of collaboration in South Africa, the power of collaboration between government, business, the power of collaboration between the parties in the GNU. If you go back 20 years and say, what did we achieve in the 2000s when we had 5%, 6%, nearly 6% GDP growth? You had concurrence on policy. You had a president, you had an ANC that had 69%. So you could pull in the same way. For the first time in 15, 16 years, you're seeing an ANC at 40% of the take of 2029. You're seeing the DA and you're seeing all the other partners in the 10-party GNU actually pulling one way. It's the point you made with your opening remarks earlier, that we were here and there was no budget to discuss. We are here because that bloody nose that the ANC received on February 20 last year has led to real consultation, real collaboration, and you have a budget that people are saying, well, if we can now get into, I think Shelley spoke about momentum, then the momentum can lead someone. So there's something to be said for this collaboration. It can take us somewhere, and this is the beginning of it. There are lots of headwinds, and we can talk about those, but it's a fantastic start, and we can make something of it. We can chat about this whole outpouring of optimism and confidence that suddenly people have.
Let's get there, because there is a change in mood. I mean, keep the lights on for a year, and it's amazing how much more cheerful people get. And that was the first step towards something quite remarkable. And why it's not coming yet through in economic growth and showing any sort of real benefit, we'll ask Lulu about. But thank you. 8 out of 10. We'll have to take his temperature just to be sure. Osman, you're not going to be that generous, surely. You never are.
Almost. I'm going to go with 6.9.
That's a 6.
That's almost a 7, but not there yet.
No. It's either a 6 or a 7. Pick one. You can't bring yourself to give it a 7, can you? So it's a 6. All right.
Yeah. In the academic world, there would have been a B, and I just don't think we deserve a B. But we're close.
Why?
So I like the positivity, I like the good message, and I think we're doing most of the right things. And I think that's what the minister did. That's the biggest reason for my positivity. I suppose one of the negative points, or big negative points, is I think we could have done more. I think, to use the PwC phrase, I think we could have unleashed the momentum a little bit better. I think there's a bit more we could have done. And then maybe my last point, which is kind of like a positive point, I guess, is I like boring. Business likes transparency, certainty. Is anyone surprised by anything in the budget? And maybe, I mean, it's not cool for a panel like this that there are no big surprises.
Oh, I think there are, but we'll get to them, yes.
Okay. But that for
Positive
me,
surprises.
yes. Well, for me, the point being the absence of some significant rate increases or anything like that, and most of us kind of knew what to expect before the time. I think for me that was a big positive, but that's why I end up on close to
6.
a 7, but not there. 6.9.
6. Faith, now you understand the rules. Welcome.
Okay,
What's your score and why?
I will say 6. I will say 6.
See, firm, clear, no room for discussion.
Can I say this is the first time
You've
I've been
ever
on a
outscored
panel
anybody at
where
anything.
I am the most positive person in the room. I don't know what's going on.
You haven't met Lullu Krugel yet, but sorry. You're giving it a 6. Why?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the positive side, it is a measured budget. I think it's realistic, and I think I think it also demonstrates that actually someone listened, to the input from South Africans, and I think there's a sign of consolidation, Bruce, in the budget. But I think in terms of the not so positive side, I think that even though the debt to GDP ratio is going down, or is projected to go down over the next few years, it's still a huge element of this budget. I mean, I think if you look at how much we're spending on just the interest bill, it's like, 432 billion rand, So I think we really need to do more to deal with that part of the budget. And it can only happen if this economy starts to grow at the north of 3%.
Faith, thank you. I mean, social welfare, 16.9% of the budget, and repayments on debt sitting at about 16.3% of the budget. So still a very, very significant amount of money that was spent by Pravin Gordhan that we are still paying back without any evidence of a return.
Yeah.
Lullu, don't disappoint me now.
So, that's a bit of a tricky one, because which way would I have to go to disappoint you? But anyway,
you'll never know.
So I'm in between here. I'm following the boring route, I suppose, and I'm going to say 7 out of 10. But
so disappointing.
The reason I say that, I believe that South Africa is genuinely at a good fiscal moment. Debt is decreasing, the deficit is narrowing. I think one of the things that I really liked is the fact that the minister didn't take that 20 billion in taxes and started spending it. He actually gave it back to taxpayers. If he really gave that back, we can debate. We just did what he was supposed to do.
Didn't take it away anymore.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that was really important. But I believe we have about a 2-year window now to move from a moment to momentum. The foundation is there. And I think there are a lot of good things that will actually help us over the next 2 years, but we need to make some very specific decisions. We've started with them, but they need to get traction.
All right. By a show of hands, who in the room gives the budget a 6 or below? Okay. Bigger hands, I need bigger hands, sorry, can't see all that clearly. Okay, a small number. 7s? Any 7s? Lots of sevens. Okay,
Okay,
yeah, I think
wow,
probably the majority of the room is sevens. Any justices in eights? Yeah, Justice Lonely, your support group can meet afterwards. We'll get a small room with those little meeting rooms outside over there. But it is interesting, and the mood is a fundamentally different mood politically, if not economically yet, because the elephant in the room is still a real unemployment rate of 42%. The official rate of 32 and 10% of people, the additional 10% people who have given up. You cannot, Lulu, bring hope to nearly half of working age people in South Africa without growth. You can't get growth without getting nearly half of those people who are unemployed in work. So how on earth are we going to get growth beyond Treasury's possibly quite ambitious target by 2027 of 2%?
Yeah, I think probably momentum and speeding up the reforms that we've been seeing. I think from a logistics perspective, from an electricity perspective, there's a lot of good things that have happened. On the logistics side, I believe there's a couple of things that we still need to sort out. So telling that story to investors, we're stable, we've got this figured out. You spoke about, what is it now, 280, how many days without load shedding?
Lots.
Yeah, it's 280 something, yeah.
Now, you know you're healing when you're no longer
You don't
counting.
know, yeah, exactly. So the reality is, why haven't we've seen a big influx and a big change in the momentum around investment? If I remember correctly, and again, my mind might play tricks on me, the first time we got load shedding was in 2007. That was the first time that it happened. And it took a couple of years for us to get to that point where we had a real challenge with investment. Now, investment, gross fixed capital formation has turned around. I think it's incredibly encouraging to see that, but it needs to double from the rate where it is currently.
It's sitting at 14% of GDP, right? We need it over 25.
Yeah, it needs to be between 25 and 30% to actually get that 3% growth that would really start to make inroads on the unemployment side. And you only will achieve that if you have sustained improvements. And I think we're starting to get a bit of a track record. I think the track record that has been created with the last 2 or 3 budgets, yes, all the false starts and everything else, has to start to show momentum. And then eventually we will get investors to come back. The big challenge at the moment is, and if you look at the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report, that everything else just seemed to be overshadowed by all the short-term noise. And I think that is making companies a little bit wary to say, I'm going to take the leap and actually invest. Why
does Moody's not feel as optimistic as this audience? Moody's certainly didn't give the budget 7 out of 10. It would have given it a 5. It doesn't believe the projections.
So I think we missed the mark for a very long time. We missed the mark much longer than we've kind of actually hit the mark over the last 3 years. So, it's, I think it's not that I like the guy at all, but Dr. Phil that said past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. And I think that's maybe the Moody's that Moody's is in, the movie that Moody's is in, is they want to see that this is sustained, but more than that it moves from a point of a moment to momentum, from a foundation to something that we do something about.
Justice, I'll come back to you in a second, because Justice mentioned collaboration, Faith. And I think, you're entrenched in the business sector, you sit in boardrooms, you've got a really good overview from financial services to the food industry in South Africa, plus, of course, the overall view of the market as well, the JSE. What is your sense on the appetite for business to double down on Vulindlela, for example, and to take the collaboration which has helped Eskom, which is helping Transnet get out of the Douane?
I think, Bruce, it's really important for us to sort of take a few steps back and say, how did we get here? Because, we got here because we actually were quite deliberate around collaboration. And I think if we look back at, like, you've spoken about Operation Vulindlela. Operation Vulindlela started in 2020 because I think government realized that they can't do it alone. So I guess first they had to coordinate internally within government, so via the SA Presidency and National Treasury, and to really be deliberate about the areas that needed the acceleration of structural reforms. And that's why we ended up, for example, solving the electricity crisis or energy crisis because, there was that focus on it. And I think we have ticked the box in the electricity crisis, and through also the private sector leaning in to partner government in operational Vulindlela. So I think, Bruce, we need to double down on that. I think we cannot now think that, things have, we cannot think we've arrived, because actually we have not arrived. We still have to address now the logistics sector, which is really a key engine to drive growth. We need Transnet to work, we need the ports to work, we need the rail infrastructure to really, to work. And I think the third element that we have to deal with, which is the elephant in the room, Bruce, is crime. Because crime dampens confidence. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel that your investments are secured, and that in the long term, as business, you will get the returns that you want to get, you're not going to invest. So those three areas, addressing the energy crisis, focusing on logistics, and then thirdly, focusing on crime prevention and justice, are the areas that business and the private and government are focusing on. But I think what I'm saying is that we have to really push even harder. We have to be more deliberate and be clear also in terms of what is it that we want to achieve, say, over the next 5 years. Because 2020 to 2025, we've really seen significant progress in addressing some of the areas that were identified via operational Vulindlela.
Thank you, Faith. What's that Dr. Phil quote again, Lulu?
The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Okay, so on that basis, you've written and spoken about trust for many years, Justice, in terms of trust between public and private sectors, broken down very significantly over the years. There is a very clear risk that we begin to think we've got this, and we've got this under control, and we can start reverting back to our past behaviors. Eskom is showing worrying signs of doing that, and there are various court cases at the moment because it's trying to undo the unbundling. Can you undo an unbundling? I think you can. It's trying to undo parts of the unbundling of Eskom, saying, hold on a second, but what about us? Yeah. If we do this, it'll destroy our business model, and no, this is not about your business model, it's about the best future for South Africa in terms of energy provision. Are we at risk of undoing some of the good work of Vulindlela rather than doubling down, that trust factor is being tested by Eskom's more recent behaviors?
I think it's being tested, but I think we should be very aware of what has happened here. Lulu says that Operation Vulindlela started in 2020. And in 2020, 21 up to 2024, you had one big kahuna in the room. It was the ANC. It had 57% support. It could, even with business coming in and saying, we can help you out here, we can do this, the ANC could say, I'm in charge, I'm doing this on my own. I think, for me, the past 18 months have seen the events of May 29, 2024, when half of South Africa, 60% of South Africa, voted for other parties. The ANC got 40%. The ANC it was demonstrated to it that you're no longer in charge of everything, and you have to listen to other people. So look at Eskom. In December, the minister, Khosientsho Ramokgopa, says, oh, maybe we're thinking of the unbundling. talking about and actually reversing a bit. Within a day, he was meeting with Busi Mavuso of BLS.
And she's quite cross about this.
And she was very cross about it. And they had a meeting, and it was, you guys, you committed to this, and now why aren't you delivering? The president listened to her, and you had that collaboration begin to happen, and he made this announcement in his State of the Nation speech that, okay, we're giving you the certainty you need, and so this will not be happening. There will be an independent body that looks after is a transmission.
Yeah.
And so you don't, that 2-month period of, oh, what is this now? It was brought to an end. So I think, for me, my 8 for this budget is predicated on the fact that so your past performance, I would not believe any of these numbers. If the minister had said to me, oh, 1.6, what did he project? 1.6 GDP growth this year, and then up to 1.8 and 2%. I wouldn't believe it if the ANC had the entire, was running this, because that's what the ANC has said for 15, 16 years now. You get a number in the budget, and next year it's a same old, same old. But I think the dynamic, the motto has changed because of the reality of where we are now. And I think it's done. If we have a collapse of the GNU, then perhaps things should change and look totally different. But if this GNU survives the ups and downs of the local election campaign up to October, November, then I think we have a 2-year window in which great things can happen, where you have a minister whose ears are open to advice from business, from others. You have a SARS that's, I would say, is one of the institutions that have turned around since President Ramaphosa came to power. I think you're seeing an alignment occurring that almost mimics where we were with Trevor Manuel, Pravin Gordhan, Thabo Mbeki, a government that says the institutions must do their work and do it perfectly, an emboldened Minister of Finance who finally finds that, oh, I can actually speak to other people in the cabinet who agree with me. And I think that gives us that 2-year window. What happens afterwards, we'll see.
Again, a year's a long time in politics and in economics, and as we see the change from last year to this year, hugely positive. The opposite can occur if we make some bad choices. Great quote from Busi Mavuso on Eskom saying, the gatekeeper of the solution cannot be the architect of the problem. So Eskom created the problem, and you cannot now pretend to be holier than thou, even though it's all under considerably under adult supervision, put it that way. Eskom is being far better run. To the odds of the GNU falling apart, you make that as a scenario, I guess, in the tradition of the great Clem Santa. How likely a scenario is it, based on the fact that if my enemy's enemy is my friend, the EFF and MK are not likely bed partners with either a DA as a kingmaker or even the ANC as kingmaker. Neither of them wants to cozy up to either the EFF or MK, which are the other big gorillas in the political sphere. So how then I can't see the GNU falling apart on that basis. We might not like each other, we might not be comfortable with each other, we might not like the fact that you're a bit cocky in your display of your success, DA, in government, but we don't really want the other guys coming in either, so we'll tolerate you as long as we have to.
Yeah, I think in the ANC, the nationalist wing, which should have gone for, we'll go with the MK party, is diminished. So you have
it's all in the MK, isn't it?
Most of it is, so there's still some in the ANC. And I think a lot of people in the ANC are thinking, actually, at the national level, what happens to MK Party as it gets rid of one leader after another? I mean, I don't know how many secretaries or chief whips or...
Do you even pay, I mean, a serious question, do you pay as much attention to MK as you did to the EFF when it started?
I paid attention to MK Party in KwaZulu-Natal because there's only one person in the National Freedom Party, NFP. If they move, MK Party runs KwaZulu-Natal.
Yeah.
And if MK Party runs KwaZulu-Natal, it could have an MEC for local government who says, Peter Maritzburg is badly run, we're putting it under administration, we'll run it. That's a budget for the MK Party. The implications of MK Party in power in KwaZulu-Natal.
Okay, so it is serious.
It is serious. So at national level, I think the dynamic is totally different. I think that they had a great moment in 2024, but I think Jacob Zuma will be not a spent force, but will be slightly more diminished in 2029. I don't think there'll be as much of a player. We'll still have a lot of players going on, but it will change. Maybe the IFP will regain some of it.
Maybe. I mean, Jacob Zuma is not getting any younger, and we don't wish him ill at all, but a creaky gate can keep opening and closing for an awfully long time. What is the future of MK without Jacob Zuma? Does it have any other cohesive powers connecting it?
No.
Should he go?
No, and that's the problem. The MK Party is, as it operates right now, is a bit of a cult. It's a cult where Jacob Zuma does everything, says everything. Think of the number of people he's brought in and got rid of in that party, in its leadership. So there isn't a leadership in the MK Party, and it's very explicit. So with Jacob Zuma, it continues, and it's his charisma, his personality, whatever tools of ethnic chauvinism that he uses, it works. Without him, his daughter is essentially de facto leader.
But isn't she out or in? Or
she has
shaken it all about.
I don't know. She has stepped down as a member of parliament, right, yeah. And likely to face some legal scrutiny because of the young people who recruited.
Of her Epstein Island type activities, but with more serious, with as serious consequences.
No, she was
connected to trafficking people across borders.
Yes, that is the serious charge that I think.
Allegation unproven.
Unproven, but
allegedly.
I think that the authorities are working on that. So without her, I think it's, I don't know if it's a party that's viable at the national level.
Right. This is the PwC budget breakfast, Osman. As fascinating as that little digression was.
I didn't talk about the island.
No, but the politics is critical to the future of South Africa, because all it takes, as Edward Kieswetter said yesterday, was one wrong move and one wrong appointment, and you can seriously undermine and undo the enormous goodwill and work that has been done over particularly the last 5 years. But back to the state of the nation's finances, Osman, why we're here. We've got a debt to GDP level, I think, at 78.9%. Projections are that if everything goes the way the crystal ball of Treasury says it'll be, by 2032, we get down to about 67%. Moody's thinks we'll burst the 80% level. At this stage, I mean, the point is we're under better control and better management than we were before. There may be some short-term anomalies, but there's a huge amount of support driving the possibility of better days ahead than worse days ahead. Commodities are one aspect of it. And the commodity super cycle doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon, right?
Absolutely, Bruce. And I think that, for me, is one of the reasons I think the minister could have done more. I mean, I think a lot was done. I guess maybe to maybe paraphrase my wife, I'm never happy with anything, so I always want more. And I think that...
So was that you paraphrasing your wife, or was that your wife talking about you?
It's the latter. I wanted more, and I do want more. So, and I think those are the tricks. Maybe they're small tweaks, but they're some of the tricks that were missed. And you made the point earlier on, Bruce, about how great we feel about having so many days without load shedding. But we are kind of like, I think, like battered spouses, battered partners, because...
There's a Stockholm Syndrome aspect to this, yes.
Because, I mean, is your gift to me just that you're going to stop beating me up? Is that really what I'm getting? And I want to ask, I mean, all of us, okay, me included, we love the fact that we've got, fiscal drag relief, no bracket creep this year, but actually... fiscal drag relief is not a gift to me. It just means you're not taking more from me. It means that I'm not that you've stopped making me poorer. We've had no fiscal drag for 2 years, FY24 and FY25. Everyone who was boosted into the higher tax bracket in FY24 are now permanently there. And those who were boosted even again in FY25 and are now in a higher, they are genuinely poorer. So by saying, okay, for FY26, we're not going to keep being mean to you, we're not going to continue making you poorer, my question was, could you not actually have started solving some of the damage you've already done? It was not such a big ask and not a big cost to have above inflation fiscal drag.
So, okay, of the more that you would have wanted, instead of an inflation-linked relief on fiscal drag, you would have wanted, say, 5% or whatever the figure might be. What else would you have liked to get that you did not get?
Maybe
we
not
may be here for a while.
Yes.
Sorry, you cancel your plans for us today.
No, maybe not immediate structural changes, but some of the commentaries that have been made in the past may be a repetition of those. So, for example, sticking on the point of personal income tax, we've had the messaging that the tax burden on individuals and the actual segment that is paying tax is too high. And we go back to Lulu's point about how can we get more people employed. I get that. But the strain on those who are currently paying tax remains high. What are we doing to relieve that? So it's not just about fiscal drag. It's also about the previous commentary made about actually reducing the rates on, as a general matter, especially the middle class. And on the point of the middle income earners, I do want to make the point that those are the ones who were primarily boosted into the higher tax brackets and who stay there. We had messaging 3 years ago that the reduction of the corporate income tax rate from 28 to 27%, sorry, 4 years ago, was the start of a process, and then we just went silent. What's happening with that? So, sorry, there are a few more. For small businesses, I mean, like, I'm glad, it's really great that the VAT threshold is now up to 2.3 million. Similarly for small businesses, but the actual tax rates for small businesses haven't changed. So the increasing the threshold to 2.3 million is not a big cost. It's actually zero cost, well, close to zero cost. It's a to use a friend of mine, it's a rounding error in how much it's actually costing us to bring more relief to the smaller businesses, to reduce their administration, but we've done nothing about the actual tax burden on those. So, yeah, Bruce, I have a list, and we could have done more, and we missed this opportunity to unleash momentum.
But the conservatism of Treasury, I think, occasionally has to be welcomed, Lulu, in terms of you don't want to sort of harvest the benefits of all of the good work in a single year. Having given yourself a little bit of headroom and a bit of a margin of safety, surely, into this year and next year is perhaps why Osman is unsatisfied, and perhaps why it's good that he's unsatisfied.
Yeah, I was listening to Osman, and from a tax perspective, I 100% agree with you, by the way. But I think with the uncertainty that Treasury had to deal with, they probably, I think, made the prudent decision. If you look at some of their forecasts, you can perhaps say that it's a little bit on the optimistic side of where they think, commodity prices will remain and the type of revenue they will collect in the outer years. Not completely unplausible, I must say, but probably a little bit on the optimistic side, and I think that's in the back of their minds, that that boon from commodities can turn around at any particular time. And what is probably more concerning to them and SARS that they're keeping themselves busy with is the areas where we didn't do well, and why we didn't do well, and why we didn't get more traction there. I know Osman will be able to tell you a lot about Pillar 2 and BEPS and everything, but we collected about 6 billion less there than what we projected. SARS has collected about 15 billion rand less in terms of revenue. There's, of course, the illicit trade from tobacco, around 40 billion just on tobacco alone.
I was talking to Richard Rivet-Karnak, the guy who runs SAB in South Africa. He put the figure for illicit booze and cigarettes alone at over 100 billion rand. The rest of the illicit economy at hundreds of billions of rand more. And that is to the point somebody made earlier about security and safety. I think it was you, Faith, talking about if you don't feel safe in your own country, physical, personal safety is one thing, but when you've got a justice system that is incapable of bringing an end to the cartels that are managing all of this stuff, you know, we could have tax cuts up the yin-yang if we had a proper justice system. Yeah.
And 518 billion in undisputed debt that they need to collect, so that is there. So I would say, if I were them, I would say, fantastic, but let's just understand, why did we underperform in these areas? Because those need to be the things that creates the momentum, creates the stable base for tax. The other things that caused the anomalies this year, fantastic, as I mentioned earlier, I believe about a 2-year window where we can use that, and we should absolutely not now, you know, try and hold everything back. But we need to understand, why did we not achieve in those areas, and how we're going to turn it around. And once we okay with that, I think I agree with you. We should be braver.
Faith, lots of questions coming through about, but the finance minister didn't talk about job creation. He didn't make any jobs. He doesn't have a jobs factory in the basement of Treasury somewhere. It's not his job to create the jobs, right? The job is to create the environment in which the jobs are created.
Exactly.
To get that fixed investment up to 25% of GDP, to get confidence going in investors. So based on the ever-present worry of South Africa's politics and how a moment can undo lots of good work and good faith, what is going to unleash the vast amounts of capital sitting on corporate balance sheets in South Africa, and you're on 4 of their boards? What is going to be the catalyst for those companies saying, we're going to build another factory for Bidvest, for example, or we are going to open a new line of insurance if we haven't thought about it yet at Discovery, or actually we're going to be opening up new bakeries for Premier Foods, or whatever the case might be? What might it be?
I think the matter of, you know, infrastructure, and specifically in the logistics sector, is really one of the other key catalysts that you know, that we need to start to demonstrate progress. And I think that process has started, because I mean, I think there's already an opening up, Bruce, of the sector to attract you know, private sector participation. So I think we sort of like, you know, there is a clear pathway to addressing some of the blockages in the logistics sector. I think the issue of, you know, crime and corruption, the Madlanga Commission is obviously still deliberating on the issues that we all know about. But I think, Bruce, we need to see real action taken post that. There has to be, you know, consequences, Bruce, because that's also what builds confidence, right? The reason why we were able to get out of the grey list was because there was action. Yeah. You know, and you know, there were consequences. So again, with this issue of, you know, crime, the justice system, dealing with violence, we need to see actions. And I think if we continue to see, you know, actions, consequences of, you know, those that are doing wrong things, you know, the justice takes its effect, that boosts confidence, you know. So we do have green shoots, so to speak. We do have confidence boosters that are pushing us. We do have also the global environment really giving us the opportunity to continue to fix our problems while we actually have got this 2-year window of opportunity, as Lullu said.
Hendrik du Toit, the CEO of 91, was giving a talk the other day, and he said South Africa's biggest problem by a country mile is a lack of execution. And it's that inability, we talk, and we have lots of really good ideas, beautiful ideas. We'll have a meeting about the ideas, and then we'll consolidate our thoughts and meet again, and then we'll talk about who should maybe, and then move on to other ideas. We don't get stuff done. I was watching an interview with Barack Obama saying, what is the number one skill to cope in an AI future? And he said, anybody who can get anything done, that's the number one human skill. And we lack the skill of execution. How do we change that, Faith?
And I think that is also one of the biggest actually gaps, that exists specifically in government, the skills to execute.
But how does the private sector assist without doing government's job and treading on government's toes?
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's a thin line because, we don't want the private sector that is interfering or that is interfering in the work of the government. We don't want conflict of interest. So I think we need to be very careful about that. But how can we solve it, Bruce? I think we need to be open to seconding the right skills to some of these critical government departments that really need to work better for us to get the economy to where it is. Because I guess in terms of the project, the early stage of the project preparation, where does it happen? It has to happen either within the municipalities or within the SOEs, and this is where the skills gaps are. So I think the role of the private sector could be actually, seconding skills into those areas. And again, we have seen that government is very open to that. We have seen through the various structures that have been formed by government and the private sector that can be done. But to your point, we need to be very careful because our role as business is not to now
subcontract government.
Exactly.
Although there's a fee.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the message is that government really they need to be brave about getting the right skills into those departments. That's really the bottom line here.
Lullu, did you spot something in the budget documents which are about this thick? About budget going directly to Justice, Department of Justice or something? Is that at all going to transform the execution of justice in our country?
So in a normal environment, it probably wouldn't have raised or I wouldn't have noticed it. I would have said, great, we're moving in the right direction. But if you look at what is happening globally, now I can't for the life of me remember who does that. But it's an index.
Somebody else does it and does very well. Yes.
There's an index that tracks the rule of law in countries. And in the Web's latest report, they actually referenced that. And out of all the countries, which most of them globally actually partake in it, almost 70% of them said, but we've seen a deterioration in the rule of law in our countries. Now, that's incredibly important. And I think we can just look around us and see kind of the flagrant disregard of the rule of law and, legal and justice systems, etc. So the important thing for me in that is it's about 90 billion rand that used to sit with the Department of Justice that's now going straight to the courts to say to them, you decide.
So the Chief Justice gets to administer this money?
Yes. So you decide what IT systems you want to implement. You decide what people you want to appoint. You decide how quickly you want to move legislation through the processes that needs to happen. So I think, optically, it's actually quite important. And it's a message that we as South Africa should send to the rest of the world, because a lot of investors are actually saying, well, I'm a little bit nervous because if I go and invest here or there, will I get my money out? Shirley mentioned the CEO survey earlier, and a lot of, I think it was just around 8% of of African firms said, we really want to focus on growth. Everybody is so nervous about what's happening globally at the moment that I think this actually sends quite a nice message to say, listen, we're taking this seriously and we're actually doing stuff to make sure that this separation of powers, this independence is enforced.
There was a question, and I appear to have cleverly deleted it, not that I know how to do that, but it was around crime and corruption and around how we are tackling crime and corruption. And I think the lost money through the illicit economy is indicative that we're not in control of this. But I was talking to somebody in the construction sector, and they do projects of between 300 million and R1 billion. So significant projects. And they were saying for the last 2 years, they have not had a single stoppage on any one of their projects. And they operate in some of the more exciting parts of the country in terms of where they do construction. They go where angels fear to tread. And they haven't had a single stoppage as a result of the construction mafia. And I said, well, are you just not big enough? Or do you not pay? As word got around that you're tough nuts. And he goes, no, actually, they believe, and their analysis suggests, as a company, that crime intelligence has helped to not eliminate necessarily, but significantly restrict the activities of the construction mafia, which we know has existed. And you go, well, that is a lovely single data point that indicates that perhaps the Malala Commission, for all of its agonizing evidence and into the police service and how dysfunctional it has become, that elements of it actually do work, Lulu, and that's positive.
Yeah, I think, it's... I always said, when people, and now I'm saying, going to go somewhere very controversial, when people say, no, bring back the death penalty. I say, it's not the type of intervention that it could be if you get caught, or it's the fact that you can get caught.
You've got to get caught first.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think the message that the Malala Commission is sending to the market is, we're seeing you, we're watching you, we're going to catch you.
No, we're seeing you, we're watching you, we're not necessarily going to catch you.
Well,
but we know who you are.
I think stuff being more out in the open does contribute. I hope that it's putting some people off thinking about crime, because it's about, am I going to be caught or not?
Just focusing on not being caught harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is going to rebuild the country, Faith? I went through Cape Town Airport after the fire of this week, and it still smells of sort of burnt plastic and stuff because there was an electrical fire at the airport, and it's caused havoc with their systems and things. But there's this wonderful display of a 22 billion rand refurb, which is going to have a big impact on your airport taxes, by the way. That's going to be fabulous. Because that's what happened the last time we fixed the airports. And I wondered who was going to build, what construction companies were going to build the airport. And I'm sure that they've got this sorted out. And then I look at the massive infrastructure projects that we've got. Lots of questions on, so load shedding is largely being fixed, but what about water? Yeah. And water reticulation is a massive infrastructure project. We no longer have the Murray and Robertses of the world and those large construction companies. Wilson Bailey Holmes is the last of the really big ones. Who's going to rebuild the country? Those companies are gone. Any views? Anybody?
Sure. Yeah. No. That's a big one. I mean, but I think we can build. It's us. It's us. Bruce. Who else is going to do it?
I know a guy with a bucket. Yeah. Justice,
I think the point you make about who delivers on stuff. Yeah. I think we're not ruthless enough on the issues we should be ruthless on. Think about, let's say, Minister Steenhuisen in agriculture. He says, I'm not running for leadership of the DA. I'm going to concentrate on foot and mouth disease. In the same week, President Ramaphosa...
Panyaza Musufi is already doing that. He's got foot in mouth disease. But his feet are clean. He was going to a hotel.
President Ramaphosa appoints a task team that will report to him directly to deal with the foot and mouth disease problem. So my question is, what is Minister Steenhuisen's job? What does he do? And why are we still paying him to do that job when there's a task team to do that? Now you go across, Steenhuisen is just agriculture and it's just this one job. And he's doing it. And I'm sure he's got a deputy. And I see Wandile Sikroba has been appointed an agriculture envoy. And so instead of saying, John Steenhuisen, you cannot do the job. We have the worst outbreak of FMD in this country. It's time for you to go. He's not a worker. He doesn't have to go to the CCMA. He serves at the pleasure of the president. He doesn't fire.
But the president's been doing this for a long time,
exactly.
though, with commissions and sort of almost doubling up on the role of government.
Take Dada Morero, the mayor of Johannesburg. He's got the bomb squad. I don't know if you remember. The bomb squad is doing his job for him. It's made up of, was it Trevor Fowler, the former city manager? It's made up of the former mayor, Amos Masondo. It's made up. He's got the bomb squad. He's got the emergency, water emergency something or other. He's got a new water committee that President Ramaphosa announced on February 12th. He's got Paul Mashatile's water team. He's got Banyaza Lissufi's water team. So why don't we just fire the guy and get other people to do the job? So all across government, there is a task team. We appoint this lady, we appoint this gentleman and say, that's your job, that you are the professional. And then there are 12 task teams hovering all over that. What are we paying for?
Yeah.
And so, who do you say, Lulu, the numbers were wrong? We don't have someone we can turn around and say, it's you. It's like, no, they brought in, Bruce, and they brought in so and so and so.
No wonder it doesn't work. Yeah.
It doesn't, and it won't work until we get to that point. So the effectiveness, the people who used to like saying this, the state of the state. The state is just not capable anymore because we've replaced everyone. This presidency has, all the reforms you speak about that have been so fantastic in rail and so forth, it's basically the president saying, none of my people can do the work. So within the presidency, if BLSA, BUSA wants to talk about how do we make sure that you get your stuff into Durban port in 3 days, when it was 2 months, like 18 months ago. I'm going to need special people. So what are the people whose job it is doing? They're just taking a salary. And it's, these are the things that are going to just, all this momentum that we speak about, it
Government's a drag. Government is a drag on progress.
Government is a drag. Yeah. So one of the things about the success of business, starting small. If you say, if you spoke about traffic lights and you go to a traffic light in Soshanguve, you will find an outsurance points person.
Yeah. You've been to too many airports.
So the outsurance person is there. On Tuesday, there were 20 Metro Corps 300 meters from the points person. They were stopping people and essentially asking them for money. But their job, they should be doing the points person's job, and they're not doing it. And down the road, taxis were stopping people and changing and saying, why are there 4 of you in the car?
Juanita Hunter was making the point on this panel last year, saying, we keep bailing people out, we keep excusing them from not doing their jobs. It's like giving crack to drug addicts, because you are constantly making excuses. You don't get rid of the problem. And I told the story of my brother who lives in Gqeberha, who does projects and turning around St. George's Park, for example, And I walked around there with him, and I said, so who are the guys in overalls on their phones? And those are the council workers waiting for their tea break, while my brother's team is cutting the verges and cutting the branches and stuff. And I think my brother's a superhero. Juanita was quite rude about him, so I was actually left to have a word with her about that. Yes. Municipalities, because it all starts with municipalities, municipal failure. How do we solve municipalities? I think that kind of is a self-rectifying, self-regulating mechanism if people want it to change. By November this year, Justice, there's a thing called a local government election.
Yeah, but,
and maybe for the first time, people start taking local government seriously.
Well, they should, but and I can blame, Cyril Ramaphosa this, and so, I mean, it's us. We vote. Many of these municipalities, I grew up in parts of the Northwest. The Northwest has collapsed. That if you take Johannesburg and say, oh, we don't have water and so forth, water shedding. If you just go to the Vaal, the Mfuleni municipality, sewage has been running in the streets of Mfuleni municipality for 10 years now. Yeah. And we still vote the same people into power. Nothing will change. Essentially, we're waiting at almost every municipality, we're waiting for people like yourselves to say, oh, business must come and do something. But we vote the same people in. Now, you go across to Midvaal, a municipality run by an opposition party that is now in the GNU. But there are still, whether it's Heineken or SAB or whoever, they're still investing in that municipality because the water in that municipality runs because the people vote for people who actually make the thing work. Yeah. So I mean, if 32 years down the line, we still don't know how to change our votes, this is not gonna, it's not gonna change. It's, and
do you see, though, that people are tired of being abused, and perhaps this time it may be different, the most dangerous words of the world?
The danger is that people do what they did in 2024. They don't pitch up at the voting station. Or
they vote for little parties, and you devolve responsibility.
Those people are heroes. The people who vote for the little parties, they actually pitched up on the day. There are more people now not going to vote and sitting there saying there's no water. That, for me, is an act of total disloyalty to this country. Because if you're going to have power, it's that one day in that municipality, and you need to use it. So I think you need a totally new team for many of these municipalities. The thing we haven't spoken about, the crime that you speak about, there is no consequence. You have the Deputy National Commissioner sitting at the Madlanga Commission now, and essentially all these revelations. If there is consequence, and we see him and others in, handcuffs and going off to jail, would have a bit more of it. But crime is not punished in many of those municipalities. The Sidibeng municipality in the Northwest has a mayor who has 5 matters, legal matters, criminal matters, on him. His bodyguards killed someone in Tshwane. They had a blue light that they were using that was illegal. They were not supposed to have one. His daughter started working at the municipality the day he started his job. All these things, and nothing happens. He is in office right now today, as we speak. Probably not at the office, but so that kind of lack of consequence, all these fantastic reforms that we speak about, they undermine them. So,
and ultimately, though, it is our own fault. Because we opt out of the democratic process, and if we choose to opt out of the democratic process, stop whining about it.
Yeah, we need to
maybe on election day, pick up people on the street and drive them to polling booths. It's a bit dodge, but
No, shout at people and say, why haven't you voted?
Yeah.
It's time to be ashamed not to have participated.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very good point. How could geopolitical tensions undo progress South Africa has achieved in its local political economic environment for the last 2 years? That's from Thijs Knoetser. I would argue that geopolitics has actually helped us, Lullu, in many respects, weirdly.
Ironically.
The madness of the Trump tariffs of what was it, Separation Day, Mad Day, Crazy Day, May last year. Sending commodity prices through the roof, Independence Day, has actually had an enormous benefit for South Africa. So weirdly, we're almost counter-cyclical to the craziness.
Yeah, we have a fantastic hedge in our commodities, actually. And, you know, what he is in effect doing is just helping that de-dollarization process to pick up speed. So the great thing what we're seeing about the current commodity price cycle is that there's two big things that's driving it. Fundamentals and, you know, cyclical trends and you know, supply and demand, etc. And I think the fundamentals, especially central bank activities to say, well, we want to get out of US bonds and, you know, the US and actually get back to gold. I never thought we would do and say that, you know. Never say never. Has been so important, and that could be one of the factors that actually hold that momentum. We need gold prices to be around $3,800 against the US, per fine ounce, not against the US, per fine ounce. We're currently sitting comfortably well over 500, or 5,000. Yeah. Sorry, not 500, 5,000. So, and a big portion, a significant portion of that uplift that we've seen in prices is as a result of everybody else in the world saying, no, thank you, Trump, we're opting out, we want to rather look after ourselves. I don't believe that there's one big thing there where everybody's moving in. They're putting their eggs in different baskets, and one of them is gold, and that's incredibly positive. Well, gold, platinum, there's massive demand for. That creates a different momentum. I mean, commodity prices on its own is a whole science. But I think that has created that counter-cyclical momentum, which creates that 2-year window that I spoke about, that we need to fix a lot of the things. And you mentioned accountability. We were talking about the speed of implementation, and I think a part of that is the lack of accountability. We pay people for what they are going to do instead of what they actually delivered. And by the way, that is true for economists too, so please don't change that. You know, or to tell us why they didn't, why the forecast that we came up with is wrong. So yeah, I really do believe that ironically, it is creating a space for us. And I also think with the Africa Free Trade Agreement, that's something that we should not lose focus
For the last 10 years, we've been talking about how we should really not lose focus on the Africa Free Trade Agreement. And the thing that we simply cannot get over the line is an Africa Free Trade Agreement. And maybe it's made worse by the policy uncertainty, the on-again, off-again Trump tariffs. His Supreme Court has told him recently, you can't keep doing what you're doing, and he got very cross about that, and has put a flat 10% tariff on everybody. If that stays stable, perhaps that creates an environment in which you can then actually stabilize your own backyard. Absolutely.
The thing is, we've seen globally that the military and economic powers have been fracturing. If you look, to the Cold War, the West, the US, about 60 to 70% of the economic power and the military power was sitting there. At the moment, there's nobody over 25% if you think about it, because Trump really managed to tick off the Europeans as well. So that's also playing in our favor, because that has created much different power blocks and has led to countries having to work together better. So I think it's really, it might force our hands a little bit on the continent.
Can I say something? I mean, everyone is trying to work together, different jurisdictions, the Europeans and the Chinese, Mark Carney in Canada and the Chinese and India and so forth. I must say, the point you make about the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is that for 10 years it's been there, it gets ratified by different countries, but our leaders are not saying, this is our chance to now buy and sell at to Kenya, to this market is sitting there, and it's not moving fast enough. No. And so, you know, for me, we can say, you know, Trump is terrible and all these people are doing this and for their own benefit. But if the African Union doesn't push this faster, so that Namibia can arbitrarily say no, sorry, or Botswana can arbitrarily say no, you can't sell South African vegetables here. When it's in both our favor to allow this free access. So I think that's it's huge. Just on the geopolitics, I think the key date to watch is the 3rd of November when the Americans go to their midterms. I think if there's an upset for the Republicans, for the Senate and the House of Representatives, then it will take some pressure off South Africa from the Trump administration.
The focus will go elsewhere.
But yes, and it will, you know, there'll be committees in the House particularly which will be able to say, oops, what are you doing? You don't have free rein to, you know, do everything. But if the Republicans win by whatever margin, both houses, that means that Donald Trump doesn't have just the next few months to November. He's got 4 years in which he can inflict quite a bit of pain, I think, on South Africa as a country that is, you know, targeted, and well, the rest of the world. But his executive orders will be as powerful as they are today, with just a bit of, the Supreme Court this one time tried to pull him back. But otherwise...
It was a very positive signal, though.
I think it's too little to really place any. I think it's still, that Supreme Court is the Supreme Court that's got Kavanaugh. Even the people who supported this decision have shown no inclination to be independent, as it were, and therefore it's still very much a right-leaning and a Republican-leaning and a MAGA-leaning Supreme Court. So, you know...
Which made it all the more delicious when they told him to stop, to behave better. I don't buy it. I'm very skeptical of it. Because that's your job. Annalise at VW in the Eastern Cape is concerned, Faith. Do you think government is doing enough to protect and support local manufacturing industries? For example, automotive. Oh, really? Okay. Again, automotive, very big industry in the Eastern Cape. Textile, because the textiles go into the motor vehicles and into everything we wear. If manufacture changes to distributor only, it will have enormous negative impact on job creation. Not only that, but I was talking to Peter Mountford, the chief executive of Supergroup yesterday, and 30% of the vehicles they're selling now are Chinese and Indian imports, and Supergroup isn't even the biggest. Motus is bigger than them with Chinese imports, and the others are also growing those imports. And it's not just a South Africa issue, it's one worldwide. We've got an important and big motor vehicle industry. We've seen Nissan switching out and producing other vehicles. We've got real pressure on the manufacturers in South Africa. Maybe the taking the heat out of tariffs will help that a little bit. But that pressure is real on the South African automotive industry. Should we be doing more to protect it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely should, Bruce. I mean, we know that, unfortunately, globally, China has been dumping, you know, their vehicles actually all over. So we're not the only market where we're feeling the squeeze of the Chinese cheaper models. And I know that recently, government actually is looking at potentially imposing import tariffs on Chinese cars. So, and again, it's quite sensitive, right? Because, you know, China is our friend and all that. But I think we do need to, you know, to be quite decisive on this one, because we are definitely seeing the local automotive manufacturing supply chain being completely decimated. So I think it's a serious matter. And again, I think government, they have to take action now. We can't be consulting and forming more commissions to actually look at
the vehicle industry will go the way of the smelters.
The impact.
I mean, and the reality is, if you don't step up fast enough, people vote with their feet. British American Tobacco has done it, others have done it. Going terribly, so we just can't function in this environment. So cheers, we're out. And once they make that call, to get them back is practically impossible.
Can I say something? I wanted to say it earlier. And I mean, in the steel industry, same thing has happened, with Chinese imports absolutely flooding the steel industry. You asking the question, who's going to build the stuff?
The Chinese will have to build it.
And the reality
We're going to import foreigners to come and do it,
Yes.
I was hoping somebody would make the point. I didn't want to have to, but thank you.
I didn't want to either.
But you've done it now.
But, and I think that is a massive challenge that we're sitting with. At the same time, as we're sorting out the ports and the logistics and stuff, we also need to keep in mind, and I'm saying we shouldn't do it, it's just an unintended consequence that if we do that, we don't do it for ourselves only, we do it for foreign companies as well.
Once you lose your capacity and you then have to do it, you get whoever can and is available at the time. Now, as we wrap up, because Faith's got a board meeting, very important, on a Friday. Who puts board meetings on Friday? You need to talk to the company secretary. They don't like you. Justice, okay, a question to all of you, but ask you to channel your inner Lion King.
Okay.
Those two could be yours, Simba. What African animals' characteristics best embody the skills that you need to survive 2026 in South Africa?
Okay.
And it was, I asked Edward Kisvetter this question yesterday. He said, the flock of geese. We had a flock of geese behind, flying in formation. I thought it was poetic and beautiful. Gulam Belim said, we need to be more like ants. Because they have got very good, strong societal structures. They collaborate, they work together, they never stop. That's a positive thing. It's very Vietnam. So think about that for a moment while I ask you this question, Justice. Does Cyril Ramaphosa become the first ANC president in history to finish 2 terms?
Yeah. What I don't understand, just one second, what I don't understand is that the things that you talk about what's happening in the Eastern Cape and the decimation of industry. Goodyear, what was the other one? Bridgestone, they're all shutting down.
Yeah.
And it's not in the president's speech in State of the Nation, and it's not in the budget speech. And then you talk about the smelters. I think, is it today, Bruce, when the government has to say, yes, we're giving you the electricity tariff structure or not. Otherwise, they shut down. But this is an emergency. If they shut down,
answer the question.
There are 20,000 jobs that are going to go. So where's the political will to fix this?
Yeah.
It's a problem. Cyril Ramaphosa will do 2 terms because at the moment the ANC doesn't have an alternative. If
you've got Paul Mashatile, he's the deputy, surely.
I think the ANC leadership race has become delicious in a very lovely way. I think Paul Mashatile's scandals are beginning to be too much of a burden. I don't think he's the front runner anymore. Fikile Mbalula,
God bless us,
is still in the running, but I don't think he's got the support. I think the emergence of a campaign around Patrice Motsepe will not take off. You know what? I think things have changed. I think the idea that you grow up in the ANC and become the automatic candidate, those days are gone.
Okay, so Patrice is still in with a shout.
So it's 33 years since 1994, when the ANC goes to conference next year. The ANC has had a prison leader, an exiled leader, internal leaders in Motlanthe and Cyril. Now it's someone who people say, that's a self-made business person. And we, you know, don't tell me about colonialism of a special type and all these jargon from the struggle. We want someone who will save jobs in the Eastern Cape. And you know what Patrice has done by saying, look, I can fix soccer on the continent, and the soccer.
Okay.
I want to take a bet with you, and I'm going to regret this, but I'll give you 20
I want to know what the bet is first before I take it.
I'll give you 20 rand if Patrice Motsepe is not ANC president in December 2027.
You want to pay now or later? Right, so African animals. Right.
So I think if that happens, I think Cyril Ramaphosa will have a grace period of handover, and he'll actually finish because their agendas are pretty much aligned.
Yeah, the politics is a lot less fraught than it used to be. I mean,
Yes.
the end of the Mbeki era was a mess. The Zuma era was a mess.
No, it's not fun because the ANC doesn't have a credible candidate. It's got to find someone from outside, and that's Patrice Motsepe. There's no one else.
$20.
Yeah.
Got you.
I like the ant. I've been spending time at my
No, you have to
mother's
have your
house
own
in
animal. But
yes,
ant, you can take
I'm
ant.
taking the ant because there is an infestation of ants at my mother's house. They are relentless, and they work. They are just going for it. They are incredible. I mean, my sister's running around trying to murder them, and they are they're going for it. So
Okay, and they're working. They're working to undermine the foundations of your mother's house.
Yes, and they're doing it. And they have leadership. The leader is telling them, go for it. The workers are working. They're non-stop day and night. I arrived in Cape Town not yesterday, the day before. And there they were in my bag. All the way from Amsterdam.
Got you. Lulu.
So I would say definitely not a Hadida, because they just make noise and do nothing else. I want to say I'm going to choose the African bee.
African bee, honeybee? Yeah.
Honeybee.
It's aggressive.
Yes. It's aggressive.
Defends
it also
its hive.
gets stuff done and creates some sweet stuff that attracts other people to come here.
Nice.
Nice. Like that.
Good luck, Faith, beating that one.
I mean, I think, Bruce, given the sort of like the very volatile and uncertain environment that we're finding ourselves in as humanity, I actually think we need to be more agile. We need to also accelerate whatever is working. So I'm a cheater.
Cheetah.
Yeah, I'm a cheater.
You're a South African. You're a cheetah.
Yeah.
Cheetah.
Oh, cheetah. Cheetah. And we need to move quickly. Absolutely.
We need to move quick. Yeah. We need to move quick.
Osman.
I'm going to limit myself to the actual Lion King movie. And my choice is actually the lion. So, and the messaging, for those of you who had young children and had to watch the movie like 700 times, that I actually got from that was the importance of taking responsibility. That's actually the message that Mufasa teaches Simba, is being the king isn't about just being cool and lazing about and, enjoying the spoils. It's about taking responsibility and to the execution point, etc., getting it done.
I've got one that's actually not featured in The Lion King. And it should be featured in The Lion King. And that's why I came
What is in there?
I want to see that.
There we go. If you've watched videos of Stoffel the honey badger,
Yeah.
he's tenacious.
Yeah.
He's got a very, very thick skin. You need a thick skin. He's incredibly flexible. If a predator grabs him by the scruff of his neck, as predators do to shake to break the neck, he's able to turn inside his own skin, then use his assets, his claws and his jaws, to fight his way out of the grasp of a predator. So if Donald Trump comes for South Africa again, he would take him down. And they're enormously creative. And if you watch the videos of Stoffel the honey badger, he's able to escape through locked gates. He's able to undo wire. He's able to train a honey badger that's put in with him to help him and her escape. And after various escape efforts, eventually his keepers, because he's been kept in a place in Rootsbreed, in a rehabilitation center, when he first escaped, they cut down the trees in his encampment so he couldn't climb out. He then piled up rocks and used the rocks to climb out and escape. They took the rocks out. He made mud balls and used them to escape. So they introduced a female into his enclosure to distract him, and that worked very well. Until he escaped again, and they watched the video footage, and he got her to stand against the wall. He jumped up on her back and jumped down again. So from tenacity, toughness, and sheer creativity, my bet would be the honey badger, but I love the ant. I love the honeybee. I love the cheetah. And I love the wisdom of Disney. Thank you, everybody in the room. Thank you to everybody who's joined us. On behalf of PwC, thank you to our panel, and thank you for coming.